Welcome to this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski, joined as always by my co-host, Suzanne Andreessen. Today, we're continuing our conversation about building out your team. And one of the overlooked spots on every team for an investor could be an asset manager. So today, Suzanne and I are going to take some time to go over the ins and outs of an asset manager, how they can help you as an investor. Suzanne, where should we start?
Well, I think certainly understanding what an asset manager is, and what is their role in the transaction. They can be anywhere from sourcing the asset to evaluating the asset to see how it's performing, looking at it on the metrics of what your ROI is, and we always talk about the buy box and see how it fits in that.
Yep. And I think the financial performance in the direction that the real estate investment portfolio is going, that's what the the asset manager is going to come in and do, So just having somebody strictly from a dollars perspective, right? Someone that comes in, looks at the health of the portfolio, where can it get better? Where is it succeeding? What investment opportunities are on the horizon to add to that portfolio? The asset manager does that and everything in between.
Sure. And they'll determine, how much you can put into the renovation on it until it falls out of profitable. So all those pieces in the financial piece are huge factors in determining how that portfolio is going to behave.
Yep. And I think it's an important distinction from asset management to property management, right? You have property managers that oversee day-to-day responsibilities at the physical property. What does this fix entail? What is it going to take? What parts do we need? The asset manager, on the other hand, is focusing on creating long-term value. Yes, they are dealing with those nuanced decisions, but they're really focused on long-term. And I think it's an important distinction, right? Investors are working for their money, but if you hire an asset manager, your money starts working for you. So that's when we're talking about the why should we bring someone else in, hire someone, pay someone else to help me with my investment portfolio. The asset manager's value is extremely long-term and can help you even when you're retired, not investing anymore. And, it helps your family for generations to come.
Sure. And they will work hand in hand with your property manager. They're going to, the asset manager say, okay, there's 7 years left on the hot water heater. But if if I lose 2 months rent when it goes down or something, so what's the break even? Do I do the hot water heater now, or do I wait the 7 years? Same thing with the roof. So you work hand in hand with the recommendations of a property manager on what needs to be renovated, but it also needs to be cost effective. So they will certainly affect the financial picture, but certainly the wealth of the portfolio as well.
Yeah, I think investors will be shocked when they start working with an asset manager, just how much every decision, I don't want to say scrutinized, but can be better evaluated, right? Of what exactly is this costing me? What's the time cost analysis? And as you mentioned, what does that timeline look like? Should I get it now to save me the hassle? Should I wait it out and do it when it finally bites the dust? So an asset manager can help in so many different ways.
For sure. But it's also, I think the benefit of an asset manager is they can most comfortably remove emotion out of the transaction. A lot of times, especially in the smaller investors, it's a very emotional transaction. And especially when it's, it's 1 of 5 or 1 of 10, you're very, play everything very close to the vest on how you're doing that. But when you bring in a third party to really look at it from the bird's eye view of financial analysis, there's no emotion in that.
And I think that's one of the important reasons why investors should consider that, right? Are you squeezing the entire orange and getting all the juice out of your investment portfolio? Because as you mentioned, an asset manager, usually the good ones, they make more money when their clients make more money. So having somebody that is aligned with you, their goals match up, and they're willing to go the extra mile to make sure that all the financial decisions make sense and make you money, more importantly, that's when they're really doing their job. So they're managing budgets, they're forecasting cash flows, and they're ensuring profitability. As I mentioned, at the end of the day, them making money and having their clients make money is what increases their reputation, allows them to get paid, allows them to find new clients. So the asset manager, you can be rest assured that they're working hard and trying to find ways that your money can make more money for you.
Absolutely. It's a great partnership.
Yep. And there's risk management involved as well, right? You talk about taking emotion out of it, but with what these asset managers can do and the risk analysis that they can perform, again, it's just having that peace of mind that the next decision for my money and what it's going to do long term and what this property could do to my portfolio long term is an important task that an asset manager can take responsibility of.
Sure. And you look at, we touched on it a little bit before, let's say the roof fails. What's the consequence of that? Does it damage the tenant's belongings? How long does it take to fix? Do you have to move the tenant out to an off-site location to fix it? So they look at longevity, time frame, and really when is it, and make estimations on, and based upon their knowledge. And they, certainly your portfolio is not the only one that they're working on. So they have a broad spectrum of expectations and longevity of product and whatnot. So I think they bring a wealth of knowledge to help you balance your portfolio in a much more financial guideline.
Yeah. And it's not just adding money to the bottom line. It can also be adding value to investors, right? There's a lot more than just monetary that an asset manager can take care of. And I think maximizing returns is a big one that an asset manager can step in right away, go over every lease agreement, look at past rent, look at market rent, and right away they're running analytics, they're running reports, and they're reporting back to you. So a lot of what we talked about in, previous episodes where investors can do their due diligence, use the technology at their disposal, that time cost analysis is something that if you hire an asset manager, they're coming in and taking care of all that. Yes, you're paying an extra employee, but if you're paying an employee that's making you money, I think that cost can be worth the expense.
Well, and you talk, establishing the correct rent, and too high, too low, or just right. And there's benefits of all of, you don't want to come in there. And it's really, especially when you've got a tenant in place, you can't just go, oh, next month you're going to go up $250. So you have to, you've got to time that properly. And as you transition from one tenant to the next, I think it's important you figure out what is the right rent, how far can you go up before creating vacancy. So there's that fine line. I think the asset manager, because they've got the knowledge how other portfolios are operating, I think they are most suited to give you the best recommendations on that fine line, vacancy versus a lower or higher rent.
Yep. And I think one of their biggest value adds worth discussing is mitigating risk. Talked a lot about the benefits, the potential to earn more money, but there's also that ability to navigate and steer clear of potentially risky decisions, right? Whether it's an investment property specific, whether it's regulations, whether it's something to do with tax breaks or tax benefits, an asset manager that will go to bat for you and take care of all those minor details that mitigate any headaches or any risk in the long term is another reason why they're a very valuable asset. No pun intended.
For sure. That's for sure. But, and they bring, continued support to it as your portfolio change. And they may decide, maybe we should do, instead of a fix and flip, a buy and hold. They make the recommendations on how your portfolio is working. And as it becomes harder and harder to source assets, maybe they say, let's transition 10% of the portfolio to buy and hold. So they have the knowledge to help you make that transition.
They're going to forecast everything. Like we mentioned, they'll be the ones that are utilizing that data, that technology, all those reports. So if it seems like it's a headache for you as an investor to go down that road and really take the time to do the deep dive on your portfolio, that's when it's worth it to have an asset manager come in, somebody who is invigorated, somebody who's passionate about it, and somebody that will do that work. No questions asked. Obviously, you're going to be paying a little bit of a fee, but when you have somebody that loves that type of work and is invested in you as an investor, that helps immensely. It gives you a little bit more confidence when you're making decisions, going after assets. You can really weigh the benefits, the pros and cons, right? Of should I go after this? Have I had success with this type of investment before? Does this line up with where my portfolio is going? You know the answers to all those questions ahead of time due to an asset manager.
And they bring to the knowledge of the industry, the supporting, markets surrounding your buy box, and making sure that and maybe they say, maybe we should make a recommendation, go to this zip code or this area, and expand, not all our eggs in one basket type of mentality. So they help push you, I think, into boundaries also to make you think differently and operate differently.
Yeah, for sure. And they're going to be providing transparency, right? Whether you want to hear something or not, the asset manager is going to tell you, right? Because as you mentioned, the emotion can sometimes overtake an investor and they'll make decisions without all the information. But if you have an asset manager at your disposal, they'll say, hey, look, I've run the numbers. this is not where we want to go, this zip code, this state, this property type, whatever the case may be, right? They're going to be the ones that are conveying that information, because if they steer you down the wrong path, they're out of a job, right? So that those type of decisions really matter to them, and they can be a trusted ally much quicker than you think, rather than somebody that's just looking to make money and collect a fee from you. They become invested much quicker than you think. And I honestly, just speaking about it, that they become a natural potential partner for an investor, right? There's somebody that, due to their profession, they might have the cash on hand to start investing. So they have all the reports at their disposal. They're the ones making the smart decisions. So I think for investors that are looking for a partner, I think they can take that relationship with an asset manager one step further and start investing with them as well.
And it's definitely a way to grow your portfolio for
Yep.
sure in a controlled fashion.
Yep. Yep. So we're off to a great start discussing all the ways asset managers can work for you and allow your money to work for you. More importantly, as a real estate investor, we're going to take a quick break and wrap up this conversation with why more investors should be using an asset manager.
REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insight and strategies from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information at your fingertips. Visit rei-ink.com to elevate your real estate investment game today.
And we're back with this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. Today, the conversation revolves around hiring an asset manager, when an investor should do it, how much value they can add to an investor's portfolio. And we really want to hone in on building a strong relationship with your asset manager. Where does that start for you, Suzanne?
I would say, establishing trust right off the bat. You've come in contact with them. You've had a chance to review, their knowledge, their skill set. And you need to really, if it's gonna work, it has to be a trust environment. You've got to trust that their recommendations are really for your benefit of the company, for the portfolio, and manage that accordingly.
Yeah, I think an investor's portfolio is something that they hold near and dear to them. They guard with their life, so to speak. So giving someone else the keys to that and allowing them to make decisions is a huge trust factor is involved in that, I would imagine, right? Because they're then going to take everything that you've done, they're going to critique it, criticize it, analyze it, run reports on it, and they're going to say, okay, based off everything that you've done previously, this is where our next step should be. This is what makes the most sense. Sometimes that's the same. Sometimes that's something completely different. And an investor might not be ready to hear that truth, but the asset manager is just going where the numbers are telling them to.
Well, and transparency is going to be a key piece to that. That you need to, whatever you give them, it needs to be fully transparent in all of the facts.
Yes.
And you need to be, in return, be able to hear what their analysis of that, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. You've hired them for a reason. And look at all of the data that you've shared with them needs to be complete.
Yeah,
and no hidden agendas. No, don't hold back, because they're here to be your partner. And make sure that you've given them the tools they need to be successful as well.
Yeah, withholding information from them is only hurting yourself as an investor in the long term. I liken it to, if you're looking for a quote on a property and you give a verbal credit score that's way higher and you get these terms, you think, okay, this loan is going to be awesome for me. But then once the credit check comes back and you are 80 points off on your credit score, that loan term and that quote disintegrates and evaporates into thin air almost, and you're back to square one. So it's one of those things where transparency, giving all the information up front is only going to help you in the long run, because as you mentioned, the asset manager is here to help you and they can't do that without all the information.
For sure. For sure.
I think clear communication is another key piece of that, right? Not just transparency and all the info as it relates to your investment property, but talking about your goals, where you want to be long term, how long do you see yourself investing? What are your goals when you're done investing, right? Are there other things that you want to get involved in? Do you want to just leave a nice nest egg for your family? Do you want to leave properties in your name and pass them down? So there's a lot of different ways a real estate investment portfolio can go depending on what the investor's long-term goals are. And the asset manager needs to know that up front as well.
Well, and you need to be on the same page. So if your goal is very different than what the asset manager's goals are, you'll never get across the bridge together. And so you need to make sure that as you create this partnership, that you're really, on the communication, but also the transparency, you need to be really clear on what your expectations and goals are and how they feel they can help you get there. And you have to do it together as a team.
And I think that's where a potential mentor or someone else in the industry that you see as a peer can really come in handy, right? Like, how did they transition to the next phase of real estate investing? How did they phase themselves out of the industry? How did they distribute their assets? Trying to find somebody that you want to model your success after. Maybe they used an asset manager to do that. And that's the one that you want to work with, right? You want to follow a path that's been laid out before you, and that's going to tell you where you should go in terms of hiring an asset manager.
And how you want to select them too. What do they, you don't want to have someone, if your portfolio is all buy and hold and they're coming from a fix and flip,
Yeah.
those aren't good synergies to have. So you need to make sure as you create this partnership, and what where your end goal is, and even the, complete disposition of it. Hopefully the asset manager not only can help you with that, but even knows people that are in the industry that are looking at the acquisition side of the other portfolio.
Yeah, there's no shame in taking this seriously, right? Set up interviews, find different asset managers, because you're right. If you find the wrong one, then you're just starting the relationship off on the wrong foot. There's a potential for losing money, and then you have to go all the way back and find a new asset manager and start the process all over again. So, again, upfront, being transparent, doing the due diligence, and finding multiple asset managers and keying in on the one that's going to work with you and work for you is a huge step in the right direction for investors.
Well, and dropping the bomb that, in the back of your head, that, okay, I want to be out of my portfolio in 7 years. But failure to share that with your asset managers, they're sitting there trying to build your portfolio and you're looking at phasing out of it.
Yeah.
So you truly need to make sure that you've been upfront, honest, and then both are on the same page, to make sure that this works.
And I think once the partnership is started, it's up to you as the investor to schedule regular check-ins, right? Whether it's once a week, once a month, always be involved with your asset manager. That person should be on speed dial going forward. Any decisions you want to make, you have to run by them. So they are somebody that you really want to pencil in on your calendar and make sure that you're meeting multiple times a month to really zone in on, okay, what's the next move? How have we been doing? Where do we go from here? All those questions need to kind of get answered, and you only do that with regular check-ins and an open line of communication. That goes both ways.
Well, and where do we stand up against our competition?
Yeah.
Our rents where they should be. Are the product that we've selected for our renovation, up to a neighborhood standard? So what do you need to make sure that as you move forward, that everything that you've done, it's been a collective approach.
Yep. And then things to consider when hiring an asset manager. I think this is an important topic to kind of put a bow on that conversation when we're discussing asset managers, but scaling your portfolio, right? So as your investment portfolio grows, it gets harder and harder to manage these individual properties when they're so spread out, right? So if you find yourself not being able to accomplish day-to-day tasks, hit your long-term goals, if you find things are getting in your way, that's when it might be time to consider hiring an asset manager, right? When everything kind of gets cloudy and the days aren't going as they used to be and the profit isn't rolling in as it used to be, that's when you need to hire help, and the asset manager can be that outlet.
Well, you don't want to become stagnant in the industry, and in your particular market.
Mm-hmm.
And seeking expertise is only going to help you round out strategy. You want someone who knows, who, if you're going to do a ton of fix and flip, you want someone who's going to help you with a selection of product. You want someone who's going to be, if you're buy and hold, how can they help you in whether you're talking about in integrating technology? We talked about that in an earlier episode. What is the technology that you're making the recommendations for? And how can we do this together? And when do we want to package this up and transition out of it? So you have to have all of those conversations, but finding those that are experts in each of those areas are going to help make that an easy decision.
Yeah. And it's an interesting cycle when you look at it from the life of an investor, right? They start out, if they become successful at investing in real estate, it's because they're good at the basics, right? They're good at finding properties, negotiating deals. All of a sudden they look up though, and they have more properties than they know what to do with. They're like, oh boy, okay, maybe I got to hire a property manager, make my life a little bit easier. Then they can go back to the basics. It starts all over again though. They get successful. They get to focus on what they're good at. Their portfolio expands. Too much is on their plate, and they look up and they're like, okay, what's next? maybe then that's when you hire the asset manager to handle that, right? You have the property manager on the day-to-day specifics of the property. You have the asset manager looking at long-term goals and things of that nature. And then for you as the investor, you get to go back to those core activities, focusing on what you're good at, what's made you successful, and clearly what's gotten you to the point where now you need an asset manager, right?
Sure. And even rounding out, we talked a couple episodes ago about adding in a virtual assistant, which is almost the bridging the gap between that and the need of an asset manager. You're taking the steps in unison to try and make sure that everything that you've done has provided a positive return.
Yeah.
And then you can take the next step. And certainly the asset manager is going to be what helps you get you to the pinnacle of the portfolio.
It's really important for investors to look at it through the lens of, I may need to hire somebody and spend more money, but it's because I'm making so much money. I've gotten to the point where I am successful and I need this to help manage my money. And then I can go back to just doing what I do best. So if you're on the fence about hiring an asset manager, it probably means you're at the point in your career where you do in fact need one.
Well, and if that asset manager is, it helps you realize your shortfalls in rental fees, that they themselves are probably going to make up that what you consider deficit.
Yes, that's a great
and what
point.
what their salary is going to be. If they bring you to a higher value of your portfolio simply by raising your rents, they're worth every penny of what that strategy was.
They're definitely one of those industry professionals that can earn their commission and then some, right? When they start uncovering those cracks and turning over every stone, and you really figure out where your shortcomings are, within months, you're a well-oiled machine again, making more money than you ever thought possible. And it's all thanks to that one decision to hire an asset manager.
Well, I think it was actually all thanks to Uncontested Investing.
There you go.
The knowledge that we've just given to them.
You heard it here first, right from Susanna Andreessen and myself, Nate Zielinski. Thank you so much for joining us on another great episode of Uncontested Investing. We can't wait to see you guys in the comments talking about when you hired an asset manager and it being the best decision of your life. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Uncontested Investing YouTube page. We will see you guys next week.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.